From Penis to Vagina to Golden Globe winner Amelia Perez for clearly being one of the best movies of 2024. Well, if awards meant anything, then the other film that took away the most awards from the Golden Globes was Brady Colbert's The Brutalist. This film just missed the deadline for my top 10 best movies of 2024. But I would have to go to the factory that John Kramer went to and saw X to see it on time. Either way, this film was finally showing at a theater near me, so let me give you a non-spoiler analysis of the film. Before experiencing this film, it's important to note that this whole film is shot in VistaVision. Well, what the f*** is that? It is a projection format that was created in the 1950s by Paramount Pictures in order to improve the quality of their films. Famous movies like Vertigo were shot on that format, but it would become obsolete after the 50s. In an interview with Variety, Lowell Crawley, the cinematographer of The Brutalist, mentions that VistaVision presents wider rather than most films, which before the 1950s were presented vertically. It gave movies more of a cinematic look, and it reduced the need to use wide-angle lenses. Newer generations may think that making movies happens when a director has a camera, and then as soon as they're done recording, they can just transfer the film onto some sort of software. And though that can be done, VistaVision is old school. It's physical film that sits on a reel and is projected onto a screen. It's not like that now because any movie you see at your local cum dumpster AMC is shot and projected on digital. Digital is cheaper and easier, just like most movies made nowadays, right? Instead, movies have gotten easier to make, but somehow more expensive. I'm talking to you, Red One. If I saw that film last year, you would have been flushed down the shitter of Davy Jones' locker. I mean, film isn't supposed to be cheap, but somehow The Brutalist, which was 3.5 hours long, was able to have a budget of just under $10 million. And Red One's budget was $250 million. And you think it would look better, right? I get it, it's a pain, but only very few filmmakers are still willing to work with the format, as reels of film can be as heavy as Rasputia, and as long as the line to get a one-on-one with Joy Taylor. This film is shot using 35mm film and can be doubled in size to 70mm. Its quality can be similar to Oppenheimer, which, if you know about movies, that's all you would hear about is how it's shot in 70mm. But the difference is, Nolan is a madman and he shoots with big-ass 70mm IMAX cameras, which is like triple the size of the original print for The Brutalist. But it's the highest quality format ever, and only a director like Nolan can do it, well, at least for now. But Oppenheimer did that, and the film's like 3 hours long, but the budget was only $100 million, so I don't get it. Now, I stress the importance of using film because it's about going the extra mile to make movies, and I think that's what we're lacking. There's so many talented directors out there, but Hollywood is all about the money, and a room full of executives believe that they know more about a movie than the actual maker itself. Thus, you get films that lack substance. But hey, those executives only care about the profit, and they make all of it, so who cares? It's always been that way. Hollywood is scared. Streaming is big, and audiences aren't willing to go to movie theaters. Well, that's been proven wrong, as we've had many films since the pandemic hit $1 billion, and even a film as ambitious as Oppenheimer almost made that much. The reason why is because it's a good film, and it gave a reason for people to experience cinema in the way it's supposed to. Not saying watching peak cinema on the Roku TV is a bad thing, but it just doesn't have the same feeling. With The Brutalist, it's less of a commercial film, but I believe that it has as strong of a case to go see it as Oppenheimer did. The runtime might scare some of you, and it did for me going into it, but I've never seen a movie that long in theaters, and the only movie I've seen that is longer is Zack Snyder's Justice League. What The Brutalist does is that it puts you in such an immersive state throughout the whole film. There isn't any obnoxious editing cuts, it isn't overly dramatic, but when there is drama, it's more gut-wrenching, even though the director is not screaming in your face that there's drama. There's a great nuance to the film, and though some answers are never clear, you can appreciate the idea and the vibe of the film. Now, it may seem like a biopic, but it's not. There isn't even a true story based on this character, and just before doing my research, I thought it was. However, there were dozens of people like Laszlo Toth, and if you haven't seen the film or even heard about it, Toth is played by Adrian Brody, as he's a Jewish architect who has immigrated from Hungary in the year 1947. Shout out to my Hungarians. He has now arrived in America to continue his architecture, as he designed grand buildings in Budapest. However, he's a nobody in America. Like you, Robbie Williams! Anyways, many judge him due to his appearance, as anti-Semitism has been lingering since the test of time. Also, he has a weird nose because he broke it during an accident where he fell on his face. Toth had family who immigrated to the US, except he had to leave behind his wife and niece. Maybe he just wanted some alone time. All he had was Cuzzo, and he met up with him in New York, which he has a furniture business. It's struggling, however, so he invites Laszlo to work with him to, improve the business. The two would find business as Harry Van Buren, son of a rich family living in Pennsylvania, would ask the two to design a library as a surprise gift for his father. They were thrilled to have business, and they would work on this hectic project as Toth had a vision that many architects have not worked with before. And that was bringing a more modern aesthetic to homes, which this design would lead Laszlo to success. However, when finishing work on the library, Harry's dad Harrison, who was supposed to be away, comes home early to see that his whole library was redone. He's very upset at Laszlo and his cousin and tells them to GTFO. They don't get paid for their duties, and Laszlo's cousin, who is letting Laszlo stay with him in New York, also tells him to GTFO. That leaves Laszlo alone again, shoveling coal in Philadelphia for some dough. And one day, as he's working, Harrison approaches him and lets him know that he actually liked the design of the library, but it was just so different that he freaked out. It also helped that the design was in a magazine, which won like Best Architect or something like that, and other people were a fan of it clearly, so he got recognized for his architectural skills, which Harrison loved that. So much so that he wanted to do tricks on Laszlo's thing, and I mean that as a joke, right? Just kidding, but for like 30 years, Laszlo would spend designing big projects for Harrison, as this dude was just trying to put up buildings like they were in creative mode. And that's the most basic way I can sum up the film, because you're going to have to watch it to know what happens, or waterboard me if you want me to hand out spoiler reviews. Why talk about this film? Why should I go watch a 3-hour and 35-minute movie? Like I said, this film is like if Oppenheimer met my favorite movie, which is There Will Be Blood. A film with such a dark tone that is a period piece about the greed in early 20th century America, when oil was discovered. Also based on a somewhat true story, as the film centers around Daniel Plainview, who is played by Daniel Day-Lewis, who no doubt is one of the greatest actors of all time.
I drink your milkshake.
And Oscar winner Adrien Brody delivers a great performance in The Brutalist, as he shows true pain in being a Jewish immigrant, but also he shows how living in America has corrupted him to be abusive and selfish. He's not a good man, and neither is Plainview, but the point of these characters, or I would say these ideas, is they do in fact represent America's history, whether it's before World War I and post-World War II, and how pivotal these times were in affecting Americans' attitudes for modern society. Not saying that the locked-in alien meme isn't a pivotal time in our society, but there's much to be said about those eras, as there were talented men like Laszlo, and there was evil men like Daniel Plainview. And it's still like that today, which is why I love these films, because they are timepieces that remain timeless. Now, There Will Be Blood is still a better film, because no film's touching that. But I damn sure appreciate Brady Corbet for having the balls that many directors haven't had making films post-COVID. Corbet self-funded the film, and this project took basically 7 years to make. I mean, who has 10 million lying around? Many guys, but they ain't using it to make peak cinema. Corbet is an actor turned into director, as Corbet has worked on movie sets his whole life, but early in his career he would act in films such as Mysterious Skin and Michael Hanke's American remake of Funny Games. Which, wow, the Austrian original from 1997 is one of the most messed up movies of all time. Which is weird that Hanke directed both versions, which is what should be done if there's an American remake. So, Corbet has been around some talented directors and actors, and he's pretty good himself, and The Brutalist is his third film that he has directed, and wow, it's quite different from the other two. He directed films which you may not have heard of, I didn't before making this video, called Childhood of a Leader and Vox Luck. But I found out that in Vox Luck, Natalie Portman's in it, so I'll watch it because of mommy. So, Corbet did his thing on this flick. There's no hiding that. But is it almost too pretentious? Yeah. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter back in September of last year, he mentions that if you can figure out the gist of a movie in the first 3 minutes, it takes you out of the movie. I get it. You gotta keep the viewer engaged, but some people are easier at identifying themes than others. I had little expectations going into this film, which made it better, but if you watch the trailer or read about the film, you think it's going to go into all this detail about architecture, but it really doesn't, and that's on purpose. Corbet wanted to represent architecture rather than just shoot it, because there's only about 4 minutes of actual architecture shot in the film. Yeah, the movie about architecture isn't just B-roll showing concrete buildings, but But Colbert doesn't shy away from showing that process of creating grand architecture. No matter what the others try and sell you, it is the destination, not the journey. That's literally a quote from the film, and it's a good quote because I think that's something Colbert was inspired by when making the film. A lot of the film focuses on the American dream and how there is hope and there are promises to be made, but at the end of the day, not everything gets fulfilled, which is dark but also eye-opening. Colbert has the film split into two parts, where the first part is about the American dream, and the second part is like a Greek tragedy. And my favorite section of the film, which is a built-in 15-minute intermission where I was able to take a piss. It's crazy. We need more intermissions because movies can be long sometimes, and honestly, I didn't need it because I was actually engaged the whole time. There are times where there will be a time jump or there will be a change in tone, and it can catch you off guard, but it's in a way where it's like a random tragedy that occurs in your life. Life isn't about dramatic build-ups. It's kind of random, which adds to the more natural world that is created in this film. I mean, there's moments that are jaw-dropping in this film, but then we're getting into spoilers, which I feel I've overshared too many details about the film. To add to the more naturalism of the film, it was filmed in 33 days in various locations, including Pennsylvania, Hungary, Carrara, and various locations in Italy.
Impressive.
Colbert did everything he could to save costs on the film, and he did all the post-production in Europe because there's less taxes there than in America. The thing is, it took 22 months to do post, and Colbert had to leave his family behind to grind out the film. Talk about dedication, because that's what he's willing to do to create his passion project. David Zaslav wouldn't be a fan of this behavior, and speaking of taxes, Warner Brothers would have written this one off for a new Keurig machine at their HQ. I want to go back into Adrien Brody, because no doubt he earns a spot to getting another Oscar. He does a great job at playing Jewish people, because that's what literally won him the Oscar back in 2003 for The Pianist. Which, speaking of that movie, he worked with a man, and not just any man, but Roman Polanski. Which, if you haven't heard of him, I'm sorry. And if you haven't, you've been warned. He's a talented filmmaker, making films like Rosemary's Baby, Chinatown, and The Pianist. In the peak of his career, sometime during 1973, dude was the prequel Diddy, and at a party he sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl named Jane Doe. He's denied these allegations, but this is one of the many incidents where he has been hooking up with minors, and he would do the same to another girl named Samantha Greer, which he actually admitted to having relations with her, but Greer spoke out saying she gave consent. But it's still a crime, and the dude fled the country since the late 70s because he knew he was guilty for a lot more. But Greer is really chill with Polanski, and they can be seen smiling together in photographs as late as 2023, which this old pedo is still alive. Barely is 91. Polanski is problematic, and 40 years after Polanski's assault, he would team up with Brody, which these allegations were very public even before social media. And what makes me more concerned about Mr. Brody is that when asked about working with Polanski in a 2016 interview with People, he says something along the lines of, people can have actions that are inexcusable, but the allegations aren't something to focus on right now. Basically what he's saying is that there's other shit in the world that's going on, and we shouldn't worry about the past. That was said during the height of the Me Too movement. Yeah, buddy, why are you defending pedos? And also, this dude worked with Woody Allen in Midnight in Paris, which he has openly had relations with children. That's Hollywood for you, but I don't think Brody's the man I want to win the Oscar, even though he gives a good performance. Give it to someone good like my boy Timmy. And I'm not going to diss Colbert for working with Brody, because Brody's cheap to get, because clearly not that many directors want to work with him, and I think Brody was the perfect casting for Laszlo. The Academy sucks though, and the Golden Globes gave Best Actor to Brody, and I'm sure the Oscars will too, because even back in 2003, they gave Best Director to Polanski. Colbert is very much against the people in Hollywood, as he had no money funded from a major studio because they would want to cut most of the film. Colbert believes that if money is the intent when making a film, it comes with bad intentions, and he's been. Colbert's themes with the Brutalists are heavily all about oppression and hate against immigrants. Even though Laszlo is this talented guy, no one wants to be around him because of his appearance. And rich Americans take advantage of immigrants to get what they want, and that still has not changed. Being different comes with hate and love, which goes back to the architecture style of brutalism. Colbert also wrote this film during Donald Trump's first presidency, during a time where immigrant policies were attempting to be implemented, which spoke to Colbert as he sees that there's still a disliking for them. Trump even wanted to take down brutalist architecture in DC before he left for office in 2020, but that did not go through, so we'll see if he goes back to trying to take it down in his new term. Colbert has been through a lot, as he grew up with a single mother and he dropped out of high school. It's no doubt that this film feels personal. A lot of the film deals with trauma, and that's a big theme in post-war architecture. Without the trauma people faced in war, there would not have been these buildings that are claustrophobic, as well as they could be seen as ugly due to its concrete designs and minimal colors. But their purpose and engineering behind them are all the most beautiful and really shape the architecture as we know it is today in our modern society. And it's a film like this that comes during a time where there's so much anxiety in the world, as there's a lack of stability, but we need to come together and help build a new foundation that fellows have damaged. And it's time to look forward to the future, which is another theme of the film, even though it may have a dark message about the reality of the American dream. No one's ever going to be fully satisfied, but we can be happy about the small things, and if we do enough small things right, the big things that occur will feel like check marks rather than a big task, because everything is a process. So we just have to slow down. Laszlo wasn't the great architect he was in one day. He had lots of trials and errors, but what he did have was balls. Just do it. That's it. Be confident in your idea, because no matter what, you will have oppressors. And though I can talk about the beautiful cinematography, amazing title cards, tight script, great performances, and just about everything else that this film does good, that's for you to see. Just give this film a shot, because it's one of the most important films to come out in a while. And if you don't like it, then that's fine, but I believe that you're going to find something to like about the film. It's hard not to. Even though this film is dark as hell, it's actually really funny, as my whole audience was cracking up during the film. I overall liked it, as well as everyone else seemed like they did. I think it's because I saw it in an old school theater in Chicago with 70mm projection, because how can you not love that? One of the best theater going experiences I've had, and I would give The Brutalist an 8.8 out of 10. Maybe too long, and it's missing a couple things I would have liked to see, but for what it is, it's a great film, and I wouldn't be mad if Brady Corbet won the Best Director, as well as The Brutalist getting Best Picture at the Oscars. Let me know in the comments if you saw the film or want to see it, and let me know what other content you want to see. I'm just going with the flow. Other than that, enjoy the ride.